The server room hummed with the frantic beeping of emergency alerts. Red warning lights cast an eerie glow across the maze of equipment racks as executives in rumpled suits hovered anxiously behind Noah Reed. Their voices competed with the alarm, a cacophony of panic about potential data loss and millions in damages. Noah's hands moved with practiced precision, his worn Navy veteran cap pulled low over his eyes as he navigated through commands on his laptop. 3 minutes later, the alarms fell silent, the system stabilized. CEO Selena Cross stood in the doorway, her designer heels and tailored suit a stark contrast to Noah's faded jeans and work boots. She glanced at her watch, her lips pressed into a thin line. "Finally," she said, then turned and walked away without another word, her entourage trailing behind her. Noah watched them go, then continued his system checks. No one had asked how he'd fixed it. No one had thanked him. That was the rhythm of life at Aurora Tech. He was invisible until something broke, then invisible again once it was fixed. He ran his thumb across the worn edge of his coffee mug, the hairline cracks spider webbing up one side. Not everything broken needed replacing. Sometimes the strongest things were those that had been broken and mended. Dawn was breaking as Noah pulled his weathered Ford F-150 into the driveway of his craftsman-style home. The old truck's engine had a distinctive rumble, the result of the rebuilt carburetor he'd installed last weekend. The house was modest but solid, situated in a working-class neighborhood in Lakeville, Michigan, where factory workers and skilled tradesmen lived in homes they were constantly improving with their own hands. Noah's front porch still needed finishing lumber, stacked neatly under a tarp waiting for the weekend. Inside, 8-year-old Ella was already awake, her dark hair a wild tangle, her pajamas decorated with rocket ships. She sat at the kitchen table, pencil in hand, tongue poking out in concentration as she worked on a math problem. "Daddy!" She launched herself at him, nearly knocking the breath from his lungs. "You smell like coffee and computers." Noah scooped her up, inhaling the scent of strawberry shampoo and childhood. "And you smell like trouble. Working on math before breakfast. What's the occasion?" "Science fair is coming up. I need to finish my regular homework so I can work on my project." Her eyes, so like her mother's, sparkled with determination. "I'm going to build a water filter that works like the ones you showed me at the plant." Noah set her down gently, moving to the refrigerator. "Ambitious, but first breakfast. Can't save the world on an empty stomach." As he cracked eggs into a bowl, he glanced at the calendar on the wall. 3 years since Sarah's accident. 3 years of raising Ella alone. 3 years of working late nights at Aurora Tech so he could be home when Ella returned from school. The rhythms of their life together had been hard-won, a delicate machinery of timing, compromise, and love. "Dad, is it okay if I use some of Mom's old notebooks for ideas, the ones in the box in your closet?" Ella asked, setting the table without being asked. The question caught Noah off guard. Sarah had been an environmental engineer specializing in safety systems for industrial facilities. The irony never left him that she'd died because of a failed safety protocol in the very manufacturing plant where she'd been consulting. "Sure, sweetheart, she'd like that. Just put everything back where you found it, okay?" His voice remained steady, but his hand tightened around the spatula. After breakfast and dropping Ella at school, Noah drove to his workshop, his garage transformed into a sanctuary of tools and projects. The heart of it was his restoration work, the partially rebuilt 1967 Mustang engine that sat on a stand in the center. Sarah had bought the car shortly before they met, dreaming of restoring it. After her death, Noah had taken up the project, a way to keep her dreams alive, to teach Ella about building things with her hands. Frank Martinez's voice called out from the driveway. "Morning, Navy, that carburetor still giving you trouble." The 68-year-old retired machinist ambled into the garage, a thermos in one gnarled hand. Frank had worked at the auto plant for 45 years before retiring. He'd taken Noah under his wing when Noah moved in, teaching him the finer points of engine restoration that the Navy hadn't covered. "Runs smooth as silk now," Noah replied, accepting the cup of coffee Frank poured him. "Use that vacuum adjustment trick you showed me." Frank nodded approvingly, running a work-hardened hand over the polished intake manifold. "Military taught you discipline, but there's some things you only learn from doing. 50 years of mistakes makes a man wise." He tapped his temple. "That's why all these young hotshots with their computers don't understand when something's about to fail. They never had to feel an engine vibration and know exactly what's wrong. Noah thought about the server room last night, how he diagnosed the problem by the pattern of the error codes, the subtle changes in the system's performance that no one else had noticed. It was the same intuition, whether with engines or networks. Speaking of work, Noah said, glancing at his watch, I need to head in, documenting the network infrastructure today. Frank raised an eyebrow. Those suits still treating you like a ghost. Until something breaks, Noah confirmed, grabbing his laptop bag. Then I become visible just long enough to fix it. Aurora Tech occupied a gleaming glass building on the outskirts of town, a monument to innovation that stood in stark contrast to the manufacturing plants that had once been the backbone of Lakefield's economy. Inside, the open concept offices were designed to foster creativity and collaboration among the development teams. The server room, where Noah spent most of his time, was relegated to the basement, out of sight, like the people who maintained it. Noah moved through the building, nodding to the few people who acknowledged him. His security badge gave him access to every part of the facility, a necessity for his role, but one that reinforced his ghost-like status. He could move anywhere, see everything, but remain largely unseen. At his workstation, Noah began mapping the company's network infrastructure. It was tedious but necessary work, documenting the connections between systems, identifying potential points of failure. Aurora's flagship product, in an advanced AI system designed to optimize operations across multiple industries, was preparing for its public debut. The pressure throughout the company was palpable. Deep into his documentation, Noah stumbled across an unfamiliar protocol in the AI's core programming. Something about it tickled his memory. He dug deeper, tracing the connections until a cold realization washed over him. The safety protocols embedded in Aurora's AI contained modified versions of algorithms Sarah had been developing before her death. Noah stared at the code, his heart pounding. How was this possible? Sarah's work had been proprietary to her consulting firm. Had Aurora acquired it, licensed it, stolen it? He searched through the documentation, finding only vague attributions to acquired intellectual property. Before he could dig further, his supervisor appeared behind him. Reed, we need you on the 10th floor. Gavin's presentation isn't connecting to the main display. Noah minimized the window marking the location in the system so he could return to it later. On my way. The 10th floor executive conference room might as well have been on another planet from Noah's basement domain. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of the city. Executives in tailored suits clustered around the conference table, their attention focused on Gavin Mercer, the chief technology officer. Gavin was 40, with the practiced, casual appearance of tech executives everywhere. Expensive jeans, designer button-down, and an air of impatient brilliance. He barely acknowledged Noah's entrance, continuing his tirade about the presentation system's failure. This is exactly why we can't showcase the advanced modules next week. If we can't even get basic systems working reliably, how can we expect investors to believe in our infrastructure? He ran a hand through his artfully tousled hair, glaring at the blank display screen. Noah moved quietly to the system controls, quickly identifying the problem. The display was set to the wrong input channel, a simple oversight, but one that had apparently been cause for a full executive meltdown. Should be working now, Noah said, stepping back as the presentation flickered to life on the screen. Gavin didn't look at him, instead turning immediately to the gathered executives. Excellent. Now, as I was saying before we were interrupted, Aurora's AI represents a revolutionary approach to industrial optimization. Noah slipped out of the room unnoticed once again. Instead of returning to his documentation, he headed to the company archives. If Aurora was using Sarah's work, there would be a paper trail somewhere. The digital archives required his highest security clearance to access. Noah searched methodically, looking for acquisition records from around the time of Sarah's death. After an hour of searching, he found a small notation about acquiring intellectual property from Reynolds Engineering Solutions, and the firm Sarah had worked for. The acquisition had happened 2 months after her death, listed as safety protocol algorithms for industrial applications. Noah felt a mix of emotions: pride that Sarah's work was being used, anger that no one had ever acknowledged her contribution, and an uneasy sense that something wasn't right. He continued digging, using his access to examine the implementation of these protocols in Aurora's AI system. What he found sent a chill down his spine. Sarah's algorithms had been modified, streamlined, to improve processing efficiency. But the modifications had removed critical fail-safes, the very features that Sarah had insisted were non-negotiable for safety. According to the development notes, these had been deemed redundant and resource-intensive. Noah ran simulations testing the modified protocols under various scenarios. Under normal operations, everything functioned perfectly. But when he introduced unexpected data patterns, the kind that could occur in real-world applications, the results were alarming. Without the fail-safes, the system entered recursive processing loops, consuming resources exponentially until it crashed. It was like removing the pressure release valve from a boiler. Everything worked fine until pressure built up. Then catastrophic failure became inevitable. If Aurora's AI were implemented in critical infrastructure as planned, the potential for disaster was significant. Noah documented everything meticulously, compiling his findings into a comprehensive report. He included Sarah's original design specifications, highlighting the removed safety features and demonstrating their critical importance through simulation results. His report concluded with clear recommendations to restore the fail-safes before any public implementation. At 7 p.m., Noah sent the report to his direct supervisor, the development team lead, and Gavin Mercer. Then he headed home to relieve Mrs. Chen, their elderly neighbor who watched Ella after school. That night, after tucking Ella into bed, Noah checked his email. No responses to his report. He tried not to read too much into the silence. It was comprehensive information that would take time to review. The next morning, Noah's supervisor, Mark Williams, called him into his office. Mark was a middle manager who'd been with Aurora for 15 years, a company man through and through. His office, like Mark himself, was unremarkable, neither in the basement with the support staff nor on the executive floors, but in the liminal space between. "Noah, I got your report," Mark began, not meeting Noah's eyes. "I have to say I'm concerned about the approach you've taken here." Noah leaned forward. "The simulations clearly show." Mark held up a hand. "The development team has been working on this system for years. They've run thousands of tests. You're looking at one small component without understanding the broader context." "I understand perfectly," Noah countered, keeping his voice level. "Sarah's the original algorithms included fail-safes that have been removed. Without them, under certain conditions, the system will fail catastrophically." Mark shuffled papers on his desk. "The development team made informed decisions about optimization. They understand the trade-offs." "Did they? Because my simulations show, Noah." Mark's tone sharpened. "The development team doesn't need an oil change guy telling them how to code. This isn't a mechanical engine where you can hear a knock and diagnose a problem. This is cutting-edge AI developed by PhDs. The dismissal stung, but Noah pressed on. "With all due respect, sir, sometimes systems are more alike than different. The principles of fail-safes and pressure valves apply whether we're talking about engines or code." Mark sighed, finally looking up. "I'll pass your concerns along. But the demo for the Japanese investors is in 2 weeks, and we're not making major architectural changes before then. So drop it, focus on your actual job, and let the developers handle the development." Noah left the meeting with the distinct feeling that his report would go no further than Mark's desk. That evening, he reached out directly to Mike Chen, a junior developer he'd befriended when fixing the young man's laptop. Mike had been with Aurora for only a year, still idealistic enough to question company decisions. "I saw your report," Mike confirmed when they met at a diner far from the office. "It got forwarded to the dev team with a note saying it could be disregarded." Noah's jaw tightened. "Did anyone actually review it?" Mike nodded, glancing around nervously. "I did. So did a couple others. Your simulations are solid, Noah, but—" He lowered his voice. "There's pressure from above. The company needs this demo to succeed. The investors are bringing government contracts, with them, infrastructure implementations worth billions. All the more reason to make sure it's safe," Noah argued. "I agree, but the directive came from Selena herself. No delays, no major changes before the demo. They're saying we can fix any issues in the post-launch phase." "And if it fails during the demo," Mike shrugged helplessly, "they're confident it won't. The test scenarios are carefully controlled." Noah drove home, slowly wrestling with his conscience. He had done everything by the book, identified the problem, documented it thoroughly, reported it through proper channels, and he'd been shut down at every turn. That night, Noah sat in his garage staring at Sarah's old notebooks spread across his workbench. He had gone through them earlier looking for her original notes on the safety protocols. What he found only confirmed his concerns page after page of careful documentation about why the fail-safes were essential, especially for systems that might be implemented in critical infrastructure. Frank found him there, still sitting in silence an hour later. The old machinist took in the scene the notebooks, the troubled expression on Noah's face. "Looks like you're carrying a heavy load, son," Frank said, pulling up a stool. Noah explained the situation, Sarah's algorithms, the modified implementation, the potential risks, and the company's dismissal of his concerns. Frank listened without interrupting, his weathered face thoughtful. When Noah finished, Frank picked up a wrench from the workbench, turning it over in his gnarled hands. "When I was at the plant, we had a saying, the guy who gets his hands dirty knows more about what's broken than the guy reading the manual in the office." He set the wrench down with deliberate care. "In 45 years, I saw a lot of corners cut. Saw good people get hurt because someone up the chain decided safety protocols were too expensive or time-consuming." His eyes still sharp despite his age fixed on Noah. Always came down to the same question, what can you live with? Noah thought of Sarah, of how she had dedicated her career to preventing industrial accidents, of how she had died because someone had deemed a safety protocol unnecessary, of Ella growing up without her mother. "I can't live with saying nothing," Noah said finally. Frank nodded as if he'd never expected any other answer. "Then you do what you need to do, Navy." Over the next week, Noah created his own implementation of the AI system's core processing module, with Sarah's original fail-safes restored and optimized. He worked nights in his garage after Ella was asleep using his personal equipment. It wasn't a complete replacement. He didn't have access to all the proprietary components, but it addressed the critical vulnerability he'd identified. He tested it rigorously, running it through the same simulations that had revealed the flaws in Aurora's implementation. His version handled the edge cases smoothly, with only a minimal impact on overall performance. The fail-safes worked exactly as Sarah had designed them to. Noah saved the finished code to the silver USB drive that Ella had given him for his birthday. She had saved her allowance for months to buy. It had it engraved with the words, "Build something good," because that's what she'd heard him say to her so many times, that their job in life was to build good things. Useful things, things that help people. The morning of the demonstration, Noah dressed with unusual care, clean jeans, a pressed button-down shirt, his Navy veteran cap left at home. Ella noticed immediately. "You look fancy," she observed as he packed her lunch. "Big day at work," he replied, trying to keep his tone light. Ella studied him with the piercing insight that sometimes made Noah wonder if 8-year-olds weren't wiser than adults. "Is it something dangerous?" The question caught him off guard. "Why would you ask that?" She shrugged her small shoulders, rising and falling under her school backpack. "You have your serious face on. The one you had when you told me about Mom." Noah knelt down to her level, looking into eyes that reflected his own concern back at him. How did he explain professional ethics to an 8-year-old? "It's not dangerous. It's just, sometimes you have to stand up for what's right, even when it's hard." Ella nodded solemnly. "Like when Kaylee was being mean to Zach on the playground, and I got in trouble for telling the teacher, but I did it anyway." Noah smiled despite himself. "Something like that." He reached into his pocket, feeling the outline of the USB drive, and maybe... Sometimes the person holding the wrench knows more about what's broken than the person who designed it. "Is that from one of Grandpa Frank's sayings?" Ella asked. "No," Noah replied, surprised to realize it had come from somewhere inside himself. "I guess that one's mine." As Noah drove to Aurora Tech for what might be the last day of his employment there, he thought about Frank's question, what can you live with? He could live with being fired. He could live with professional consequences. He couldn't live with staying silent if there was a chance his silence could lead to harm. In the Navy, they'd had a different saying. "It's not about who's right, it's about what's right." Today, he would find out if he still believed it. The Aurora Tech presentation hall had been transformed for the demonstration. Usually a multi-purpose space used for company-wide meetings, today it gleamed with professional lighting, sleek signage displaying the Aurora logo, and rows of comfortable chairs arranged for the international investors. A massive screen dominated the front wall, ready to showcase the AI system's capabilities. Noah set up at the technical support station at the back of the room, a small desk hidden in shadow where he could monitor the systems without being visible to the audience. Mike Chen spotted him from across the room and gave a subtle nod of acknowledgement before rejoining the development team huddled near the stage. The Japanese delegation arrived precisely on schedule, led by Mr. Tanaka, a distinguished man in his 60s whose posture and bearing suggested military background despite his impeccable business suit. Noah watched as Selena Cross greeted them with practiced charm, her red dress a deliberate choice, the color of prosperity and good fortune in Japanese culture, a detail Noah recognized from his Navy deployments. The silver USB drive felt heavy in Noah's pocket as the presentation began. He had no plan to intervene unless necessary. Despite everything, he hoped he was wrong, that the demonstration would proceed flawlessly, that the controlled scenarios wouldn't trigger the fatal flaw he'd identified. Selena took the stage with confident strides. Distinguished guests, today you will witness the future of industrial optimization and control systems, she began. Aurora's AI represents a quantum leap forward in processing efficiency and adaptive learning. The presentation progressed through carefully choreographed demonstrations. The AI analyzing complex data sets, generating optimized processes for manufacturing scenarios, adapting to changing variables in real time. Each successful demonstration was met with polite applause from the investors. Noah monitored the system metrics on his screen, seeing the resource utilization climbing steadily. Normal for complex processing, but the pattern concerned him. The system wasn't releasing resources efficiently between demonstrations. Mr. Tanaka raised a hand during a brief pause, his first direct engagement. Most impressive, but I am curious about performance under unexpected conditions. May we see how the system handles anomalous data inputs? Gavin stepped forward smoothly. Of course, we've prepared a demonstration of the system's adaptive capabilities. Noah tensed. This was precisely the type of scenario that could trigger the recursive loop he'd identified. Sure enough, as the demonstration progressed, he saw the warning signs flashing across his monitoring display. Resource utilization, spiking processing threads, multiplying without termination, memory allocation approaching critical levels. On the main screen, the first visible glitch appeared. A momentary freeze in the visualization quickly recovered. Most of the audience wouldn't have noticed, but Mr. Tanaka's slight frown indicated he had. Noah opened a direct message to Mike. It's happening. Resource consumption critical. Estimate system failure in 3 minutes. Mike glanced at his phone, then shot a worried look toward Noah. On stage, Gavin's presentation continued, but his pace had quickened slightly, trying to rush through before problems became obvious. Too late. The system froze again, longer this time. Gavin tapped commands rapidly on his tablet, attempting to redirect resources, but Noah could see it was futile. The cascade failure had begun. The main screen went black, then displayed a processing error message. A murmur ran through the audience. Selena stepped forward, her smile strained but professional. A minor technical glitch, if you'll bear with us for just a moment. The development team scrambled to their stations, fingers flying across keyboards. Noah watched the back-end metrics spinning out of control, a digital equivalent of an engine throwing a rod. The system wasn't just stalled, it was consuming resources at an exponential rate, heading for a catastrophic crash that could potentially damage hardware. 5 agonizing minutes passed. The investors shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Mr. Tanaka's expression had hardened from interest to disappointment. Selena's professional composure was cracking around the edges as she tried to maintain casual conversation with the front row while shooting desperate glances at Gavin. The development team's efforts resulted in a brief restoration. The main screen flickered back to life, displaying the AI interface. A smattering of relieved applause quickly died as the system froze again, this time, displaying critical error messages across the screen. Selena's face flushed with anger beneath her makeup. Her eyes scanned the room looking for a target, a diversion, anything to salvage the situation. Her gaze landed on Noah at his monitoring station. With the desperate calculation of a drowning person spotting a potential flotation device, Selena strode to center stage, microphone in hand. Ladies and gentlemen, while our development team addresses this unexpected issue, perhaps we could get a different perspective. Her voice carried forced brightness. Noah Reed from our IT support team is with us today. Every head in the room turned toward Noah. The spotlight literally swung to illuminate him at his small desk. Mr. Reed has been observing our demonstration. You're just an IT guy. Selena continued, her tone shifting to something harder, edged with cruelty, disguised as playfulness. But perhaps you see something our PhDs are missing. Why don't you come up here? The invitation was a trap, transparent in its intention to create a scapegoat, to shift attention from the failing demonstration to an expendable employee. The room fell uncomfortably silent as all eyes fixed on Noah. He stood slowly, conscious of every gaze. The weight of the USB drive in his pocket seemed to grow heavier with each step toward the stage. The development team watched with a mixture of embarrassment and relief at having the spotlight directed elsewhere. Mike Chen alone looked stricken, his expression silently apologetic. If you can fix this, Selena added with a sharp laugh as Noah approached, I'll give you the whole company. A ripple of uncomfortable chuckles ran through the audience. Noah stopped at the edge of the stage, looking up at Selena. The system metrics flashed in his mind, the cascading failure, the exponential resource consumption, all stemming from that fundamental flaw in the safety protocols that Sarah had designed and Aurora had modified. Ma'am, with respect, Noah said, his voice steady and carrying clearly through the silent room. I don't want your company. I just want to fix what's broken. Before Selena could respond, Gavin stepped between them, his face flushed with anger and embarrassment. That's enough, Reed. This is not your domain. Security will escort you back to your station. Two security guards materialized at Noah's side, not quite touching him, but clearly prepared to remove him if necessary. The humiliation was complete, publicly dismissed, physically contained, his expertise rejected. Noah retreated to his station, the guards hovering nearby. On stage, the development team's final recovery attempt resulted in the most spectacular failure, yet the main screen displaying a critical system error before going completely dark. The auxiliary lights flickered as the power draw spiked, then stabilized. Mr. Tanaka exchanged a single look with his team, then closed his portfolio with deliberate finality. The sound seemed to echo in the silent hall. Without a word, the message was clear: the demonstration had failed, and with it, Aurora's chance at the contracts. Selena stood frozen on stage, her expression shifting from shock to rage. Her eyes found Noah again, but this time there was no calculation. Only naked contempt, as if his knowledge of the problem was worse than the problem itself. In that moment, Noah made his decision. While the executives huddled in crisis and the investors murmured among themselves, he turned to his terminal. The main systems were in chaos, but Noah wasn't interested in those. Instead, he accessed a maintenance port, part of the original infrastructure he'd helped design years ago before being relegated to IT support. The access point bypassed the main system controls, connecting directly to the core processing modules. It was designed for emergency maintenance, invisible to anyone who didn't know exactly where to look. Noah plugged in his USB drive, the silver surface catching the light as he uploaded his modified implementation with Sarah's restored failsafes. In the Navy, we had a saying, he murmured, as his fingers flew across the keyboard. It's not about who's right, it's about what's right. The fix wasn't simply a patch or a restart. It was a surgical replacement of the flawed processing module with one that maintained all the advanced functionality while adding the critical safety protocols. The implementation uploaded, verified, and integrated into the system within minutes. Noah initiated a controlled shutdown of the runaway processes, then a sequential restart of the core systems. On his monitor, he watched resource allocation return to normal parameters, processing threads, resolving properly, memory usage stabilizing. The system was healing itself. No one noticed what he was doing. The executives and developers were too busy with damage control, the investors preparing to leave. Only Mike Chen, glancing back at Noah's station, saw the intent focus on his face, the deliberate keystrokes, the green status indicators beginning to appear on his screen. Noah sent a simple text to Mike's phone. Watch the main screen. The massive display at the front of the hall had been dark for several minutes. Suddenly it flickered to life, displaying the Aurora AI interface, not the demonstration version, but the full system operating at optimal parameters. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. All eyes turned to the screen as data began flowing, visualizations building with smooth, efficient precision. The AI was processing at speeds beyond what had been demonstrated earlier, without a hint of instability. For several seconds, nobody moved or spoke. The only sound was the quiet hum of the equipment and the soft tones of the system as it processed data sets with flawless efficiency. Then one person began to applaud Mr. Tanaka, his weathered face showing the first real interest of the day. Another investor joined, then another. Within moments, the room filled with applause not for Selena or the development team, but for the miracle they were witnessing. As the applause crescendoed, Mr. Tanaka rose from his seat, raising a hand to quiet the room. When he spoke, his voice was precise and authoritative. "Most impressive recovery," he said, nodding toward the screen. "But I have one question." His gaze swept over the executives. "How long has your company known about the flaw that caused the initial failure?" The question hung in the air like a live grenade. Selena stepped forward, attempting to regain control. "Mr. Tanaka, what you just witnessed was our system's self-healing capabilities. There was no fundamental flaw, merely an unexpected—" "The system logs, please," Mr. Tanaka interrupted calmly. "I would like to see the development in debugging records." Gavin froze, his expression shifting from confusion to alarm. "I'm not sure that's necessary." "It is necessary," Mr. Tanaka stated firmly. "If we are to consider implementing this system in critical infrastructure, we must understand its failure modes and how they have been addressed." The room had gone very quiet again. Noah watched as Mike Chen, his face set with determination, stepped forward and connected his laptop to the presentation system. The main screen displayed a chronological log of system development notes, bug reports, and technical decisions. And there it was, highlighted for all to see, multiple entries documenting the recursive processing vulnerability dating back months. Each entry was flagged as critical, each one assigned for resolution, and each one subsequently marked deferred, with the same explanation: optimization priorities take precedence. Address post-launch. A murmur of disbelief rippled through the investors. Mr. Tanaka's expression darkened as he scanned the entries. These warnings were ignored for what reason? Before Gavin could formulate a response, an alert tone sounded from several phones in the room, the journalists covering the event. Each had received an identical email containing an internal communication chain from Aurora's CFO to the development team, explicitly ordering them to cease work on this non-issue and focus on features that would impress investors rather than theoretical edge cases. Most damning of all, Selena Cross had been copied on every message. The emails appeared on the main screen, projected from a reporter's phone. The final blow was delivered as the room read the CFO's dismissal of the bug as a time-wasting edge case not worth the resources to fix, with Selena's one-word reply, "Agreed." The silence that followed was absolute. Mr. Tanaka stood gathering his materials with deliberate movements. "I believe we have seen enough for today," he said, his tone formal. "We will be in touch regarding our decision." No one needed a translator to understand that the decision had already been made. The Japanese delegation filed out, followed by the other investors, leaving behind a room full of stunned Aurora executives and employees. In the chaos that followed, no one immediately questioned how the system had recovered or who had implemented the fix. Noah slipped the USB drive back into his pocket and began shutting down his monitoring station. His part in this drama was done. Whether he still had a job tomorrow remained to be seen. As he gathered his belongings, Noah noticed Arthur Vance, the chairman of Aurora's board, approaching. The older man had observed the entire demonstration in silence from the back row, his expression inscrutable throughout. "Mr. Reed," Vance said, his voice carrying the weight of authority earned over decades in business, "I'd like a word with you before you leave." Noah nodded, bracing himself for termination, or worse. Instead, Vance asked a single question. "That recovery wasn't automatic, was it?" "No, sir," Noah answered honestly. "I implemented a fix through the maintenance port." Vance's eyebrows rose slightly. "And you developed this fix when—" "Over the past week, sir, after my formal report was dismissed." Vance nodded slowly, his gaze evaluating. "I see." He handed Noah a business card with his private number written on the back. "I'll be in touch. Don't discuss today's events with anyone until you hear from me." As Noah drove home, the adrenaline of the day finally began to ebb, leaving him exhausted but oddly at peace. He had done what he believed was right. Whatever consequences followed, he could face them knowing he had honored Sarah's work and his own principles. Ella was waiting at the kitchen table when he arrived home, her science project materials spread out around her. She looked up eagerly. How was the big day? Did you have to stand up for what's right? Noah smiled, the tension in his shoulders easing at the sight of her. I did, and it was hard just like we talked about. Did you get in trouble like I did? He sat down beside her, considering how to answer. I don't know yet, but sometimes doing the right thing has consequences. Ella nodded sagely. Miss Peterson says that's how you know it's really the right thing because it's not always easy. She picked up a crude water filter model she'd constructed. I'm trying to make this work like Mom's designs. It's hard. Noah examined her work, a plastic bottle filled with layers of sand charcoal and cotton. Simple but effective, just like Sarah would have designed it. Your mom always said the best solutions were the ones that worked even when everything else failed. Like a backup plan. Like a fail-safe, Noah corrected gently. Something that protects people even when the main system breaks down. Ella considered this, her young face serious. Is that what you fixed today? A missing fail-safe? Noah stared at his daughter once again, struck by her perception. Exactly that. How did you know? She shrugged, turning back to her project. Because that's what Mom always talked about. And that's what you always fix, the things that keep people safe when they don't even know they're in danger. In that moment, Noah Reed, Navy veteran, IT support engineer, single father, felt a certainty settle over him. Whatever came next, he had built something good. The projection screen suddenly illuminated with a functioning system showing performance metrics beyond what Aurora had promised, causing stunned silence, followed by Mr. Tanaka asking, who fixed this and why wasn't it fixed before today? The data visualizations flowed across the massive display with fluid precision. Resource utilization indicators glowed green. Processing speeds exceeded the projected benchmarks by 17%. What had been chaos minutes before was now a symphony of optimal performance. Selena Cross stood frozen on the stage, her red dress now seeming less like a symbol of prosperity and more like a warning flag. Her eyes darted between the screen and the crowd, struggling to process this unexpected resurrection. Behind her, the development team stared open-mouthed at their monitors, equally bewildered by the system's sudden recovery. I believe I asked a question, Mr. Tanaka said, his voice cutting through the stunned silence. He remained standing, his portfolio closed but not yet returned to his briefcase, a deliberate signal that his departure was paused but not canceled. Gavin stepped forward, professional instinct overriding his confusion. Our system's redundant failover protocols activated automatically. He improvised, shooting questioning glances toward his team. This demonstrates Aurora's robust, self-healing architecture. That is not accurate, Mike Chen interrupted, stepping forward with tablet in hand. The junior developer's voice shook slightly, but his resolve was clear. The system has no such automatic recovery capability. Arthur Vance moved to the center of the room, his authoritative presence commanding attention. Mr. Tanaka, honored guests, I believe transparency is required here. He gestured toward Noah's station. Mr. Reed, would you please explain what just happened? All eyes turned to Noah once again. This time he walked forward without hesitation, the silver USB drive now visible in his hand. The system was failing because of a recursive processing vulnerability. Noah explained, his voice steady and clear. When certain data patterns are encountered, the system enters an uncontrolled loop, consuming resources exponentially until catastrophic failure. He held up the drive. This contains a modified implementation with restored fail-safe protocols that prevent those recursive loops. I applied it through an emergency maintenance port, Mr. Bohm. Tanaka's eyes narrowed with interest. And these fail-safes, they were not part of the original design. Noah hesitated, the weight of Sarah's memory pressing on him. They were part of the original safety protocols that were later removed during optimization. Removed, Mr. Tanaka's tone sharpened. Deliberately. Before Noah could answer, a nervous young woman in a press badge stood up. We've received documentation showing the Aurora development team was aware of this vulnerability for months. Is this accurate? Mike stepped forward again, tablet still in hand. Yes. The logs confirm multiple warnings about this issue dating back 3 months. All were marked for deferral until after the product launch. The room erupted in murmurs. Mr. Tanaka raised a hand for silence, his expression grave. Show me these logs. Now. Mike connected his tablet to the main display. The development logs appeared chronological and damning. Each entry marked critical vulnerability, each response deferred to post-launch phase. This decision, Mr. Tanaka asked, pointing to the screen, who authorized it? Mike scrolled to an email chain. The CFO's directive was explicit. Cease all work on this theoretical edge case. Focus resources on investor-facing features. Copied recipients included Gavin, the development leads, and Selena Cross. Selena stepped forward, her composure cracking. These technical decisions were made by the development team. As CEO, I rely on— Your signature is on the directive, Mr. Tanaka interrupted, pointing to her email response. Agreed. Proceed as discussed. A heavy silence fell. Noah watched the reality sink in across the room. The deliberate choice to ignore safety concerns in favor of speed, to market the calculated risk with other people's safety. Mr. Tanaka turned to Noah. These fail-safes you restored, whose design were they originally? Sarah Reed's, Noah answered. My late wife. She was an environmental engineer who specialized in safety systems. Aurora acquired her work after her death. And you recognized her work in the system, Mr. Tanaka asked. Yes, when I identified the vulnerability, I realized it existed because her original fail-safes had been removed. I recreated them based on her notes and optimized them to work with Aurora's architecture. Mr. Tanaka considered this, then turned to Arthur Vance. Mr. Chairman, our consortium was prepared to implement Aurora's system across critical infrastructure, power grids, water treatment, transportation networks. Systems where failures cost lives, not merely money. He gestured toward the log still displayed on screen. What I see here is unacceptable. Vance nodded gravely. I understand completely, and I assure you there will be a full investigation and accountability. The Japanese delegation conferred briefly, then Mr. Tanaka addressed the room again. We require time to reassess. We will reconvene in 1 week to review Aurora's remediation plan. His gaze settled on Noah, with Mr. Reed present. As the investors filed out, the Aurora executives huddled in crisis mode. Selena attempted to join them, but Vance's cold stare stopped her. My office now. The boardroom emptied quickly, leaving Noah alone with Mike Chen. The young developer looked simultaneously terrified and relieved. I didn't expect it to go this far, Mike admitted. I just wanted the truth known. You did the right thing, Noah assured him, though he wasn't entirely convinced either of them would have jobs tomorrow. Those emails, Mike said hesitantly, I didn't send them to the press. Noah raised an eyebrow. Then who did? Before Mike could answer, Noah's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Parking garage, level 3. Now. The underground parking structure was nearly empty. At that hour, the concrete expanse echoing with Noah's footsteps as he approached level 3. A solitary figure waited beside a luxury sedan. Catherine Reynolds, founder and CEO of Reynolds Engineering Solutions, Sarah's former employer. Hello, Noah, she said, extending her hand. Her grip was firm, her expression unreadable. It's been a long time. 3 years, Noah confirmed, surprised by her presence. You sent the emails to the press. She nodded, leaning against her car. When I received an anonymous tip that Aurora was misusing Sarah's safety protocols, I had my team investigate. What we found was disturbing. How did you get internal emails? Noah asked. Catherine's smile was thin. Aurora's acquisition of Sarah's work came with specific implementation requirements. Their contract gave us audit rights they apparently forgot about. She studied Noah carefully. But the fix today, that was all you. I used Sarah's original designs, Noah explained. I couldn't let them launch a flawed system. No, you couldn't, Catherine agreed. Sarah would have done the same. She opened her car door. The board will be looking for someone to blame. You should prepare yourself. I already have, Noah said quietly. Catherine handed him a business card. When this settles, call me. Reynolds could use someone with your integrity. With that, she drove away, leaving Noah alone with the echoing uncertainty of his future. The story broke before Noah reached home. Aurora tech scandal, safety protocols sacrificed for profit, screamed the headlines on technical news sites. By evening, mainstream outlets had picked up the story, focusing on the potential dangers of compromised AI systems in critical infrastructure. The narrative crystallized with surprising speed: arrogant executives ignoring safety warnings, a whistleblower exposing the cover-up, and a hero engineer. Just an IT guy, saving the day with a crucial fix. Smartphone videos of Selena's public humiliation of Noah, followed by the system's miraculous recovery, spread across social media platforms. Noah turned off his phone after the third news crew appeared outside his house. He drew the curtains and focused on maintaining normalcy for Ella, who sensed the tension but didn't fully understand its cause. "Are those people here because of what happened at work?" she asked as Noah prepared dinner, peering cautiously through the blinds at the news vans. "Yes, but it's nothing for you to worry about," Noah assured her, though worry gnawed at his own stomach. How long before his savings ran out if he lost his job? How would he explain to Ella that standing up for what's right sometimes meant sacrificing security? A knock at the back door startled them both. Noah tensed until he heard Frank Martinez's distinctive voice. "Navy, it's just me. Came through the alley to avoid those vultures out front." The elderly machinist entered carrying a bag of groceries and wearing an expression of gruff concern. "Figured you might need supplies for a siege," he said, setting the bag on the counter. To Ella, he added, "Your dad's all over the news, kiddo. Regular hometown hero." "Dad fixed something important," Ella said proudly. "Something that keeps people safe." Frank ruffled her hair. "That's what your dad does. Always has." He turned to Noah. "You holding up okay?" Noah shrugged, the weight of the day settling heavily on his shoulders. "Ask me after I find out if I still have a job." "Job," Frank scoffed. "From what I hear, you could have your pick of jobs after today. Reynolds Engineering already put out a statement praising your technical integrity and commitment to safety protocols." Noah's phone rang. Arthur Vance's private number. "I need to take this," he said, stepping into the garage for privacy. Reed Vance's voice was clipped. "The board is in emergency session. Your presence is required tomorrow 9 a.m. sharp." "Am I fired?" Noah asked bluntly. A pause. "That's for the board to determine, but come prepared to explain your actions in detail." The line went dead. Noah returned to find Frank entertaining Ella with stories from the auto plant. The old man gave him a questioning look. "Board meeting tomorrow," Noah said, keeping his tone neutral for Ella's benefit. Frank nodded, understanding. "Need someone to watch the little one." "Would you mind? I don't know how long it will take." "Not a problem," Frank assured him. "We'll work on the Mustang, right, kiddo?" Ella grinned. "Can I use the socket wrench this time?" "Sure thing. Every mechanic needs to know their tools." Frank promised, sharing a meaningful look with Noah. Whatever tomorrow brought, Ella would be cared for. That night, after Ella was asleep, Noah sat at his workbench surrounded by Sarah's notebooks. He had reopened old wounds by involving her work in this mess. Yet somehow he felt closer to her than he had in years. She had designed those fail-safes to protect people, and now through his actions they would. There was a symmetry to it that brought a measure of peace. The Aurora Tech headquarters seemed transformed when Noah arrived the next morning. Security guards checked his ID with unusual scrutiny. Employees stared as he passed conversations, halting mid-sentence. He was no longer invisible. The executive floor with its panoramic views and original artwork had always been foreign territory to Noah. Today he was escorted directly to the boardroom where the full board of directors waited around the massive table. Arthur Vance sat at the head, flanked by grim-faced executives. Selena Cross was notably absent. Mr. Reed Vance began once Noah was seated. "The events of yesterday have created an unprecedented situation for Aurora Tech. Our stock has dropped 17%. Our largest potential clients are reconsidering their contracts. The press is camped outside our doors." Noah remained silent, waiting for the actual point. "However," Vance continued, "our technical team has verified that your implementation is sound. The restored fail-safes function exactly as intended with minimal performance impact." He leaned forward. "The board requires a complete understanding of how this situation developed. From the beginning, please." For the next hour, Noah methodically explained that everything. Discovering Sarah's modified algorithms, identifying the vulnerability, his attempts to report it through proper channels, and finally his decision to create and implement the fix. "And you believe you acted appropriately?" asked a board member, her tone neutral. "I followed every procedural channel before taking direct action," Noah replied. "The system was fundamentally unsafe. Lives could have been at risk if implemented as designed. Yet you chose to intervene during a critical investor demonstration," another board member noted. Some might view that as deliberately damaging to the company. I didn't cause the system failure, Noah pointed out. That was the result of the vulnerability I had previously reported. I only intervened after the failure occurred. Arthur Vance studied him carefully. What were you thinking when CEO Cross publicly singled you out? Noah considered the question. That she was looking for a scapegoat, that she wanted to humiliate me to deflect from the system's failure. And were you humiliated? Yes, Noah admitted, but that didn't change what needed to be done. Vance nodded slowly, then asked the question Noah had been waiting for. What do you want from Aurora Tech now? Mr. Reed, compensation, a promotion, your own department. The room grew quiet, all eyes on Noah. He thought of Ella, of their modest home, of the half-restored Mustang in his garage, of the life they had built. That was enough, if imperfect. I have two conditions, Noah said finally. First, I want a fully funded, lifetime technology and engineering scholarship established for my daughter Ella. I want her to have every educational opportunity available. The board members exchanged glances, clearly having expected demands for personal enrichment. Second, Noah continued, I want a permanently flexible work schedule. I drop my daughter off at school every morning and pick her up every afternoon. That is non-negotiable. That's it? A board member asked incredulously. No stock options, no executive position, no compensation for the difficulties yesterday. Noah shook his head. Those are my conditions. Arthur Vance's expression remained unreadable. The board will consider your requests. You'll have our decision by end of day. You're dismissed for now, Mr. Reed. Rather than returning to his basement workspace, Noah drove to Lakefield Memorial Park. The small plaque marking Sarah's memorial was nestled beneath an oak tree overlooking the lake she had loved. He hadn't visited in months, the pain still too fresh despite the years past. I used your work today, he said quietly, sitting on the bench facing her plaque. Your fail-safes, your safety protocols. They're going to keep people safe just like you designed them to. He traced the engraved letters of her name. I think you'd be proud, not of me but of what your work will do. The morning sun sparkled on the lake's surface the same way it had on their first date here. Sarah had talked passionately about engineering ethics that day, about the responsibility that came with designing systems people's lives depended on. Noah had fallen in love with her conviction as much as her brilliant mind. His phone buzzed, a news alert. The headline made his stomach drop. Aurora Tech announces major leadership changes amid safety scandal. The article detailed the immediate suspension of the CFO pending investigation, and more shocking, Selena Cross had been removed as CEO, with Arthur Vance stepping in as interim replacement. Before Noah could process this development, another call came in. Vance again. The board has reached a decision regarding your conditions, Reed. They're accepted in full. Additionally, we'd like to discuss a new role for you at Aurora. Can you return this afternoon? Yes, sir, Noah agreed, wondering what new position they could possibly envision for him. When he arrived at headquarters, Noah was escorted not to the boardroom, but to a large conference room where Arthur Vance waited alone. Sit down, Reed, Vance said, gesturing to a chair. What I'm about to propose isn't just a new position for you. It's a fundamental restructuring of how Aurora approaches system safety and integrity. Vance pushed a folder across the table. Inside was a proposal for a new division, Safety Systems Integrity, with Noah Reed listed as director reporting directly to the CEO. Your technical expertise is valuable, Vance explained, but your ethical clarity is invaluable. We want you to build a team responsible for verifying that all Aurora systems meet the highest safety standards before deployment. Noah studied the proposal carefully. This team would have veto authority over launches if safety concerns aren't addressed. Absolute veto authority, Vance confirmed. No exceptions, no overrides, not even from the CEO. It was everything Sarah would have insisted on, everything Noah believed necessary. Yet he hesitated. Why me? There are more qualified engineers. We don't need another engineer, Vance interrupted. We have plenty of those. We need someone who will stand up and say no when it matters regardless of the consequences. Yesterday you proved that's you. Noah thought of Frank's question. What can you live with? He could live with this responsibility, this chance to ensure what happened with Sarah's protocols never happened again. I accept, Noah said. With one additional condition, I want to hire veterans transitioning to civilian life. People who understand duty and integrity under pressure. Vance didn't hesitate. Done. As Noah left the building that afternoon, he noticed the difference immediately. People nodded to him, some even stopping to shake his hand. He was no longer invisible. For better or worse, he had become a symbol of something technical, integrity perhaps, or simply the courage to speak uncomfortable truths. The media storm intensified over the following days. The hashtag just N8 guy trended globally, becoming a rallying cry for undervalued employees everywhere. Noah's inbox filled with interview requests from technical journals, mainstream news, and even late-night talk shows. He declined them all, focusing instead on establishing his new division and maintaining Ella's routine. The reporters eventually stopped camping outside their house when it became clear Noah wouldn't provide the dramatic interviews they sought. 1 week after the demonstration disaster, Noah sat across from Mr. Tanaka and his delegation in Aurora's boardroom. Beside him were Arthur Vance and the new development team leaders. Notably absent were Selena Cross and anyone associated with the previous safety decisions. Mr. Reed, Tanaka began, I have reviewed the technical documentation for your implementation of the safety protocols. The work is excellent. Thank you, sir, Noah replied, but the core design was my wife's. I merely adapted it to Aurora's architecture. Tanaka nodded approvingly. Giving credit where due is another form of integrity. He turned to Vance. Aurora's reorganization demonstrates seriousness about addressing the structural problems that led to this situation. However, trust once broken must be rebuilt through actions, not promises. We understand completely, Vance assured him, which is why Mr. Reed now has complete authority over safety protocols with direct board oversight. Tanaka studied Noah carefully. And you believe the system is now safe for critical infrastructure implementation. Noah met his gaze steadily. With the fail-safes restored and properly tested, yes. I would trust it to protect my own daughter. Tanaka seemed satisfied by this answer. Then we will proceed with certain modifications to the contract. Our technical team will work directly with Mr. Reed's division on implementation and ongoing monitoring. After the meeting concluded successfully, Vance turned to Noah. That was the endorsement we needed. The Tanaka Consortium's approval will bring other clients back to the table. Noah nodded, already thinking of the safety checks his team would need to implement before any deployments. There's one more thing, Vance added. The board has approved an additional compensation package for you in recognition of your actions that preserve these contracts. He handed Noah an envelope. Inside was documentation for a substantial stock grant, enough to secure Ella's future beyond just her education. The board insisted, Vance said, seeing Noah's hesitation, not as a reward for loyalty to Aurora, but as recognition of your loyalty to principles that ultimately saved this company from itself. That evening, Noah shared the news with Frank as they worked on the Mustang's engine, Ella helping, by arranging tools in meticulous rows. Sounds like you came out on top, Navy, Frank observed, tightening a bolt with practiced precision. New position, stock grant scholarship for the little one. It wasn't about winning, Ushe ninning, Noah replied, checking the timing belt alignment. Frank snorted. Never said it was, but sometimes doing right puts you on top anyway. He wiped his hands on a rag. Company needed someone like you all along, someone who sees the whole machine, not just the shiny parts they show off. Like you at the plant, Noah suggested. Exactly, Frank agreed. 45 years I saw every kind of corner cutting you can imagine. Warned about problems nobody wanted to hear about until something broke. He handed a smaller wrench to Ella. Your daddy did what I wish I'd done more often, stood his ground before something broke beyond fixing. Ella looked up from her careful arrangement of sockets. Is that why those people called you a hero, Dad, because you fixed something before it broke? Noah considered how to answer, aware of how his response might shape her understanding of ethics and responsibility. Not exactly, sweetheart. I fixed something that other people knew was broken, but decided not to fix. Why wouldn't they fix it? The innocent question cut to the heart of the matter. Sometimes, Noah explained carefully, people worry more about how things look than how they work. They worry about schedules and money more than safety. That's stupid, Ella declared with 8-year-old certainty. Frank chuckled, out of the mouths of babes. It's not always that simple, Noah said, though part of him agreed with her assessment. But that's why it's important to do the right thing even when it's hard. Like Mom did, Ella asked. The question caught Noah by surprise. Yes, he said softly, exactly like Mom did. Later that night, Noah discovered Ella in his closet, carefully returning Sarah's notebooks to their box. Did you find what you needed for your project? He asked. She nodded, her small face serious. Mom wrote about fail-safes a lot. She said they're the most important part of any system because they're the last chance to prevent disaster. Noah sat on the floor beside her, touched by how she treasured these connections to the mother she barely remembered. That's right. Your mom designed systems that protected people just like you're trying to do with your water filter. Ella carefully closed the box. I decided I want to be an engineer like Mom. And like you. You can be anything you want, Noah assured her. She shook her head with surprising certainty. I want to build things that keep people safe, things that work even when everything else breaks. In that moment, Noah saw Sarah's determination in their daughter's eyes. The legacy of Sarah's work would continue not just in the systems now being implemented at Aurora, but in Ella's growing understanding of what it meant to build something good. The Aurora Tech Town Hall meeting was scheduled for a month after the demonstration incident. Every employee from executives to maintenance staff gathered in the company auditorium, a rare full assembly that signaled the importance of the occasion. Arthur Vance opened the proceedings with a candid assessment of what had gone wrong and how the company would change moving forward. He spoke of a new corporate culture built on technical integrity and safety-first principles. He detailed the structural changes, the new Safety Systems Integrity Division, the modified approval processes for all deployments, the whistleblower protections now firmly in place. And finally, Vance concluded, I'd like to invite Noah Reed to share a few words about the philosophy that will guide our path forward. The applause that greeted Noah as he approached the podium wasn't loud or boisterous, but deep and sustained, filled with genuine respect. He stood before them, not in executive attire, but dressed as he always did, practical work. Clothes a person who built things with his hands and his mind. Noah reached for the microphone and paused, surveying the hundreds of faces turned toward him. They expected a speech, some grand vision statement about Aurora's future. But Noah Reed had never been one for unnecessary words. Instead, he began a deliberate symbolic ritual that spoke louder than any prepared remarks. First, he took out the small silver USB drive that had saved Aurora's demonstration and placed it gently on the podium, visible to everyone. Next, he unwrapped the faded blue hair tie from his wrist, Ella's given to him that morning, with instructions to remember me when you talk to all those people. With careful movements, he secured the USB drive to the microphone stand, binding this symbol of technical solution to the company's new voice. Finally, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small yellow sticky note. On it, written in his precise handwriting, was the line of code that had formed the heart of his fix, if not data break. He pressed it firmly onto the silver drive, completing the silent statement. The auditorium remained completely quiet, every person present, understanding the message without a single word being spoken. Technical solutions mattered. Human connections mattered. And the willingness to break harmful cycles mattered most of all. A camera flash captured the moment the humble USB drive, the child's hair tie, and the world-changing line of code bound together as Aurora's new guiding principle. The image would define the company's transformation in business schools and tech forums for years to come, accompanied by the simple caption, sometimes the most important maintenance is the maintenance you do before something breaks. After the town hall, Noah returned to his new office, a practical space that reflected his approach to leadership. Unlike the minimalist executive suites, his workspace combined technical equipment with the tools of his mechanical background. Diagrams covered the walls, and a partially disassembled engine sat on a side table as a tactile reminder that all systems, digital or mechanical, followed similar principles of integrity and stress. His team, a mix of veterans transitioning to tech careers and experienced engineers who valued safety over speed, had already begun methodically reviewing Aurora's existing systems for similar vulnerabilities. The culture was changing slowly but perceptibly as technical decisions regained primacy over purely financial ones. One afternoon, as Noah was reviewing implementation plans for the Japanese consortium, his office door opened to reveal an unexpected visitor, Selena Cross. No longer CEO, she had been reassigned to lead a newly formed ethics and AI division, a position that many viewed as a demotion disguised as a lateral move. "May I come in?" she asked her formerly commanding presence, now subdued. Noah gestured to the chair across from his desk, curious about this visit, but maintaining his professional demeanor. Selena sat stiffly, clearly uncomfortable. "I've been doing a lot of reflection since everything happened," she began. "The board gave me a choice: resign completely or rebuild my career by focusing on the ethical implications of our technology." Noah remained silent, waiting for her to continue. "I chose to stay," she said, meeting his eyes directly for the first time. "Which means I need to understand what I missed before. How I allowed financial pressures to override safety concerns." She hesitated. "I thought perhaps you could help me understand where the line should be drawn." It was a surprising request, the former CEO asking for guidance from someone she had publicly humiliated. Noah considered his response carefully. "In the Navy," he said finally, "we had a saying about maintenance. If you think safety procedures are expensive, try having an accident." Selena nodded slowly. "I've been reading your wife's original papers on fail-safe design philosophy. She wrote something similar about the false economy of bypassing safety protocols." The mention of Sarah's work from Selena's lips initially felt like an intrusion, but Noah recognized the genuine effort at understanding. Sarah believed that safety wasn't just a technical requirement, but an ethical obligation, that the people designing systems had a responsibility to the people whose lives would depend on them. "I lost sight of that," Selena admitted. "Somewhere between quarterly targets and investor expectations, I started seeing safety concerns as obstacles rather than obligations." She straightened in her chair. "I don't expect forgiveness, Mr. Reed, but I am committed to learning from this failure." Noah thought of Ella's water filter project, of her determination to build something that would protect people, of how even his 8-year-old daughter understood that some principles couldn't be compromised. "Start by asking the right question," he advised. "Not how quickly can we launch, but how would I feel if my family's safety depended on this system?" Selena considered this, then nodded. "Thank you for your time," she said, rising to leave. At the door, she paused. "For what it's worth, I was wrong that day. You're not just an IT guy. You're the conscience this company needed." After she left, Noah sat in thought, turning over this unexpected conversation. People could change when confronted with their failures. He had seen it in the Navy, seen it in himself after Sarah's death. Perhaps Selena's transformation was genuine. Time would tell. His phone chimed with a reminder, time to pick up Ella from school. No matter what happened at Aurora, that commitment remained his North Star. As Noah drove through Lakefield that afternoon, he noticed subtle changes in how people reacted to him. A nod from the gas station attendant, a wave from parents at Ella's school who had seen him on the news. His visibility extended beyond Aurora now, for better or worse. Ella bounded into the truck, her backpack stuffed with papers. "Dad, my water filter won first place. The judges said it was the most practical design in the whole third grade." Noah grinned, pushing aside thoughts of work. "That's my girl. Let's get ice cream to celebrate." At the local diner, as Ella demolished a chocolate sundae, Noah's phone buzzed with an unexpected message. It was from Catherine Reynolds. Sarah's safety protocols just saved lives in their first real-world implementation. "Thought you should know. The legacy continues." Noah showed the message to Ella, explaining its significance in terms she could understand. "Remember how we talked about your mom designing things that keep people safe? Today, her ideas help protect real people." Ella considered this ice cream momentarily forgotten. "So part of Mom is still doing good things even though she's gone." "Exactly," Noah confirmed, his throat tight with emotion. "And you're carrying on that work with your water filter." Ella beamed, pride and purpose illuminating her young face. "Building something good," she said, echoing the words engraved on the silver USB drive, the family motto that had guided them through the darkest times. Later that evening, as Noah tucked Ella into bed, she asked a question that had clearly been on her mind. "Dad, are you famous now? Jamie at school said his mom saw you on TV." Noah sat on the edge of her bed, considering how to explain the complexity of his sudden visibility. "Not famous exactly. I just did something that people thought was important." "Standing up when no one else would," Ella said, repeating what she'd overheard. "Something like that," Noah agreed. I'm proud of you, she declared, the simple statement more meaningful than all the media coverage combined. Noah kissed her forehead. I'm proud of us. Now get some sleep. In his garage workshop that night, Noah worked on the Mustang's restoration, losing himself in the methodical process of rebuilding the transmission. The mechanical work cleared his mind, the tangible progress a counterpoint to the abstract challenges of his new role at Aurora. Frank stopped by, as he often did in the evenings, bringing coffee and decades of automotive wisdom. Saw the company's stock is recovering, he commented, handing Noah a specialized tool before he even asked for it. Vance is a good leader, Noah replied, focused on aligning the gear assembly. Transparent about the problems, clear about the solutions. Unlike the last one, Frank observed. Saw her on the news doing that public apology. Didn't seem too sorry to me. Noah paused, thinking of his conversation with Selena. People can change when the consequences get real enough. Maybe, Frank allowed skeptically, or maybe they just get better at hiding who they really are. He watched Noah work for a few minutes. You planning to stay at Aurora long term? The question made Noah look up. Why do you ask? Frank shrugged. Just wondering if you're settling or building. There's a difference. I'm building, Noah said after a moment of reflection. Building a system that will keep people safe, building a future for Ella, building a legacy for Sarah. Frank nodded, satisfied. Good, because settling is what breaks a man eventually. Building keeps him strong. He pointed to the Mustang's frame. Like this old girl here. She's not being restored to sit in a garage. She's being rebuilt to run to fulfill her purpose. Noah smiled at the analogy. Frank's practical wisdom had guided him through the darkest days after Sarah's death, and now through this unexpected career transformation. Speaking of purpose, he said, I've been meaning to ask you something. My new department needs advisors with real-world experience in safety systems. People who've seen failures up close and know what they look like before they happen. Frank's bushy eyebrows rose. You offering me a job Navy, consulting position, Noah clarified. 2 days a week reviewing system designs for practical failure points that engineers with clean hands might miss. The old machinist rubbed his chin thoughtfully. Might be interesting to teach those computer types a thing or two about real machinery. A slow smile spread across his weathered face. Count me in. As they returned to work on the engine, a comfortable silence fell between them. Two men building something tangible, something that would last, something good. In that moment, Noah Reed felt the separate pieces of his life aligning like perfectly machined parts of an engine. Family, work, purpose, all running in harmony. Outside, the media vans had finally disappeared from his street. The viral story was fading from the headlines, replaced by newer scandals and sensations. But the impact remained both at Aurora Tech and in the wider industry, where new attention was being focused on the ethics of AI implementation and the importance of robust safety systems. Noah had never sought the spotlight, never wanted to be a symbol or a hero. He had simply done what was necessary, what was right. And somehow that had been enough to change things. Not through grand speeches or dramatic gestures, but through the quiet persistence of technical integrity. As he tightened the final bolt on the transmission assembly, Noah thought about the yellow sticky note now displayed prominently in Aurora's lobby, the simple line of code that had broken a destructive cycle, if not data break. Sometimes the most important thing wasn't adding complexity, but knowing when to stop a harmful process. In code, in corporations, in life itself. 3 months later, Noah received a private message from Mr. Tanaka. The Japanese consortium had successfully implemented Aurora's AI system with Noah's safety protocols across 3 major infrastructure projects. The message included a photo of a small plaque installed at their headquarters bearing Sarah Reed's name and a simple dedication for safety that never sleeps. That evening, Noah took Ella to Sarah's memorial. Together, they placed fresh flowers and told her about the lives her work was protecting, about the water filter that had won first prize, about the Mustang that was nearly restored. I think Mom would be proud of both of us, Ella said, her hand small in Noah's larger one. I know she would. Noah agreed, feeling Sarah's presence and the values that continued to guide them. On the drive home, Ella asked unexpectedly, Dad, what does legacy mean? My teacher used that word today. Noah thought carefully about how to explain. A legacy is what you leave behind that continues to affect the world after you're gone. It could be ideas or values or even the way you've changed other people's lives. Ella considered this. So mom's legacy is her safety systems and the way she taught you about doing the right thing. That's part of it, Noah agreed, but her most important legacy is you, the person you're becoming, the values you're learning, the good you'll do in the world. Ella fell silent, absorbing this concept. Then with the directness of childhood, she asked, "What will your legacy be, Dad?" The question caught Noah off guard. He hadn't thought of his own life in those terms, had been too focused on preserving Sarah's legacy, on raising Ella, on simply moving forward day by day. "I'm still building it," he answered finally. "But I hope part of it will be showing you that one person standing up for what's right can make a real difference." As they pulled into their driveway, Ella nodded with satisfaction. "Like your line of code that fixed everything." Noah smiled at her simplification of the complex events. "Something like that. One line at the right moment can change everything." That night, Noah stood in his garage looking at the nearly completed Mustang restoration. What had begun as a way to hold on to Sarah had transformed into a bridge to the future, a project that connected him to Ella, to Frank, to the community of builders and fixers that had supported him through the darkest times. His phone buzzed with a notification from Aurora. The first international safety certification had been approved for their restructured AI system with specific commendation for the fail-safe protocols. It was official validation of everything Noah had fought for, everything Sarah had designed. He ran his hand along the Mustang's polished fender, feeling the solid reality of metal shaped by human hands, guided by human values. In a world increasingly dominated by algorithms and artificial intelligence, this tangible connection to craftsmanship felt more important than ever. Noah Reed, Navy veteran engineer, father builder of things both digital and mechanical, stood at the intersection of past and future. Sarah's legacy flowing through his work, his values shaping Ella's understanding of the world, his stand for integrity rippling outward through Aurora Tech and beyond. One person, one principle, one line of code. Sometimes that was all it took to change the course of things. 3 years later, at a technology ethics conference, a young woman approached Noah after his presentation on integrating fail-safes in critical systems. She introduced herself as an engineering student inspired by the Aurora incident to focus on safety protocols. "Your story changed how I think about engineering responsibility," she told him earnestly. "That one line, if not data break, it's become a philosophy in my program. A reminder that sometimes the most important part of a system is knowing when to stop." Noah thanked her, still uncomfortable with his role as an inadvertent symbol, but grateful that the lesson had spread beyond Aurora. As he packed up his materials, he found a message from Ella's science teacher. Her advanced engineering project had qualified for the national competition. The attachment showed Ella proudly standing beside her creation, a sophisticated water filtration system based on her mother's principles, scaled for emergency deployment in disaster zones. The photo caption read, "Building something good." And in that moment, Noah Reed knew that the most important system he had ever helped design wasn't in Aurora's code base or in the infrastructure implementations around the world. It was in the values he had transmitted, in the courage he had demonstrated, in the legacy that would continue long after him through the hands and heart of his daughter. The late afternoon sun filtered through the blinds of Noah Reed's office at Aurora Tech, casting long shadows across the engineering diagrams and safety protocol manuals neatly arranged on his desk. 3 years had passed since the demonstration that changed everything. The company had transformed under Vance's leadership, with Noah's Safety Systems Integrity Division now considered the backbone of Aurora's renewed reputation. A knock at his office door pulled Noah from his concentration. Mike Chen entered, tablet in hand, no longer the nervous junior developer, but now a seasoned team lead in Noah's division. The transformation in Mike was striking, from a hesitant whistleblower to a confident professional with the same unwavering commitment to safety that Noah had demonstrated that fateful day. "The quarterly safety audit reports just came in," Mike said, sliding the tablet across the desk. "Every implementation has maintained perfect compliance. The Tanaka deployments are showing 99.8% uptime with zero critical incidents." Noah nodded with quiet satisfaction. Sarah's protocols are doing exactly what she designed them to do. "There's something else," Mike added. Heartwood Medical Center is reporting that the emergency power management system prevented a catastrophic failure during last night's storm. Estimated 63 lives saved in critical care units. Noah stared at the report, a tightness forming in his throat. 63 families who would never know how close they'd come to tragedy. 63 families who still had their loved ones because of a line of code that said, if something's wrong, stop. I thought you'd want to know, Mike said softly. Thank you, Noah replied, his voice steady despite the emotion welling inside him. Send a full report to Catherine Reynolds at RES. Sarah's old team should know too. After Mike left, Noah sat in contemplative silence. The path that had led him here from Navy technician to IT support, to director of safety systems, seemed almost predestined in retrospect. Yet he knew it had been built on 1,000 small decisions, moments where he had chosen integrity over expedience, responsibility over convenience. His phone buzzed with a text message from Ella. Won first place in regional robotics. Mr. Leong says my fail-safe design was innovative and elegant. Coming home on bus. Can we have pizza to celebrate? Noah smiled, typing back a quick, absolutely. Proud of you, kiddo. At 11, Ella was showing remarkable technical aptitude, combined with her mother's unwavering commitment to safety and her father's practical approach to problem solving. As Noah prepared to leave for the day, his intercom buzzed. Mr. Reed, there's someone here to see you. Says she's an old friend. Curious, Noah opened his office door to find Dr. Angela Chen, the physician who had attended Sarah in her final hours. He hadn't seen her since that terrible day at the hospital, though she had sent a card on the first anniversary of Sarah's death. Doc Chen Palmer, Noah said, surprised. Please come in. The doctor looked older, more weathered, but her eyes still held the same compassion he remembered from that darkest of days. I hope you don't mind the unexpected visit, she said. I'm at a medical technology conference in town and saw your name on the program for tomorrow's panel. Of course not, Noah assured her, gesturing to a chair. It's been a long time. Too long, she agreed, settling into the chair. I should have reached out sooner. After your wife died, well, doctors often avoid the families of patients they couldn't save. It's a failing in our profession. She met his eyes directly. But that's not why I'm here today. What brings you here? Noah asked. Dr. Chen placed her hands carefully on her lap. I was at Heartwood Medical Center last night during the power crisis. I saw firsthand what your systems did. She leaned forward slightly. One of my patients was on life support, a 7-year-old boy waiting for a heart transplant. When the primary power failed, your fail-safes ensured not even a millisecond of interruption to critical systems. Noah nodded, absorbing the real-world impact of their work. I'm glad the systems performed as designed. It's more than that, Dr. Chen continued. After what happened with Sarah, I often wondered if anything good could come from such a senseless loss. Now I know. She reached into her bag and withdrew a small envelope. The boy's parents asked me to give you this. Inside was a handmade card decorated with a child's drawings of superheroes. The message, written in crayon, was simple. Thank you for keeping my heart machine working. Love, Ethan. Noah stared at the card, momentarily unable to speak. This was Sarah's true legacy, not just in the technical protocols that bore her name, but in the lives touched by her vision of safety that never sleeps. Will you tell them thank you, he asked finally, and that it was my wife's design that saved their son? I already did, Dr. Chen assured him. They know about Sarah. They're planning to name their foundation's new research grant in her honor. She paused, hesitating slightly. I've followed your career, you know. After that demonstration 3 years ago made the news, I recognized your name immediately. Sarah would be so proud of what you've done with her work. After Dr. Chen left, Noah found himself driving not toward home, but to Lakefield Memorial Park. The late afternoon had turned to early evening, the setting sun casting long shadows across Sarah's memorial plaque. He sat on the bench, Ethan's card in his hands. Your work saved a little boy today, he said quietly to the absent Sarah, and 62 other people, just from one implementation. He traced the engraved letters of her name, a ritual that had become less painful with time. Ella won her robotics competition with a fail-safe design. She's so much like you, sometimes it takes my breath away. The gentle breeze rustling the oak tree above seemed almost like a response. Noah sat in peaceful silence until his phone rang for him, checking if he should start dinner for Ella. "I'll be home soon," Noah assured him, "just making a stop first." At home, Ella was already setting the table while Frank checked the pizza delivery status on his phone. The domestic scene, so ordinary, so precious, grounded Noah in what mattered most. This, above all, was what he had fought to protect, not abstract principles, but the solid reality of home, family, and purpose. "Dad," Ella exclaimed, rushing to show him the robotics trophy. "My fail-safe system was the only one that prevented cascade failure during the stress test. Even Mr. Leong said he'd never seen a design like it for our age group." Noah examined the device, impressed by its elegance. A simple mechanical backup triggered by electrical resistance changes completely independent of the main system, but seamlessly integrated. The kind of solution Sarah would have designed. "She's got her mother's brain and your stubbornness," Frank observed with a gruff affection from the kitchen doorway. "Wouldn't take any shortcuts, even when the other kids were finishing faster." Over the past 3 years, Frank had become more than just a neighbor and mentor. He was family now, a grandfather figure to Ella, and a steadying presence in Noah's life. The retired machinist spent most afternoons with them, teaching Ella about tools and engines, while Noah was at work sharing dinner with them most evenings. Their unlikely family unit had formed organically out of shared loss and common values. Frank's wife had died years earlier, and his own children lived across the country. After dinner, Noah and Ella retreated to the garage to work on the Mustang, now fully restored mechanically, but still needing final touches on the interior upholstery. The car had become their shared project, a tangible connection to Sarah and to each other. As Noah guided Ella through the process of measuring and cutting the leather panels, he reflected on how far they'd come. The insurmountable grief of losing Sarah had transformed, not diminished, into a purposeful honoring of her values through their daily choices. The professional crisis that had threatened everything had instead opened new paths for meaningful work and impact. "Dad," Ella said suddenly, looking up from her careful measurements, "Miss Wilson asked us to write about our heroes for school. Is it okay if I write about Mom, even though I don't remember her very well?" The question caught Noah by surprise. "Of course it is. But what will you write about?" Ella traced the patterns she'd drawn on the leather. "About how she designed things to keep people safe, and how her work is still saving lives, like with that little boy at the hospital." She hesitated. "And about how you made sure her work wasn't forgotten." Noah felt a familiar tightness in his chest, pride and grief intermingled. "I think that sounds perfect. I can help you remember some stories about her if you want." "I'd like that," Ella said. "And maybe we could visit her memorial again. I want to show her my robotics trophy." "We'll go this weekend," Noah promised. "The Mustang's almost ready for its first real drive. We could take it there." Later that night, after Ella was asleep, Noah received an unexpected email. The subject line read simply, "Thank you." The sender was Selena Cross. Noah hesitated before opening it. After the demonstration disaster 3 years ago, Selena had been removed as CEO and reassigned to lead Aurora's newly formed Ethics and AI division, a position many viewed as a demotion disguised as a lateral move. Their interactions since had been minimal and strictly professional, the memory of her public humiliation of Noah still a barrier between them. "I've accepted a position at the National Institute for Ethical Technology Implementation," the message read. "My work in Aurora's ethics division has led to developing new industry-wide standards for AI safety protocols. The foundation of these standards is what we now call the Reed principle, that safety is not a feature, but a fundamental obligation. I wanted you to know that your stand that day changed more than just Aurora. It changed me, and through this work, it's changing our entire industry. Not bad for just an IT guy." Noah closed his laptop, uncertain how to feel about Selena's transformation. The vindication was hollow. He had never wanted to prove her wrong, only to make the system right. Yet there was something hopeful in the knowledge that people could change, could learn from their failures, and find new purpose. The next morning, Noah attended a leadership meeting where Vance unveiled plans for Aurora's next major initiative, AI systems for disaster prediction and response. The stakes were even higher than their previous projects, with the potential to save thousands of lives during natural disasters, but also the risk of catastrophic failure if warnings came too late or evacuations were directed improperly. "This is why the Safety Systems Integrity Division exists," Vance concluded, nodding to Noah. Every component of this system will require Reed's sign-off before deployment. No exceptions. After the meeting, Vance pulled Noah aside. I need you to go to Japan next month, Mr. Tanaka is expanding the implementation of our systems to include emergency response networks across the Asia-Pacific region. He specifically requested you personally oversee the safety protocols integration. Says he won't proceed without Reed's guarantee. The request would mean international travel 3 weeks away from home. Before the demonstration that changed everything, Noah would have declined immediately. His place was with Ella, but now with Frank's steady presence in their lives and Ella growing more independent, the calculation was different. I'll need to talk it over with my family, Noah told Vance. I'll let you know tomorrow. That night, Noah laid out the situation to Ella and Frank over dinner. The opportunity to expand Sarah's safety systems, the time away the potential impact. You should go down, Ella said immediately. Mom's work could help so many more people. Frank nodded agreement. The little one and I will be fine. Between the two of us, we might even finish that interior upholstery before you get back. Noah studied them both. His daughter with Sarah's determination in her eyes, Frank with his steady, unwavering support. This too was part of building something resilient, creating a network of relationships strong enough to bend, without breaking, to adapt to changing circumstances while maintaining core values. All right, Noah agreed, but I'll be calling every day, and no using power tools without Frank right there, understood? Ella rolled her eyes in exaggerated exasperation. Dad, I've been using the drill press since I was 9. Under direct supervision, Noah reminded her, though he couldn't help smiling at her confidence. The weekend brought clear autumn skies perfect for the Mustang's inaugural drive. The engine purred with the smooth power that comes from careful restoration, from attention to detail, from respect for the original design, combined with modern improvements. Ella sat in the passenger seat, one hand trailing out the open window, feeling the rush of air between her fingers. It's perfect, Dad, she said, her face alight with joy. Mom would love it. They drove to Lakefield Memorial Park, parking near Sarah's plaque beneath the oak tree. Ella had brought her robotics trophy and the small journal she kept of her engineering projects. As she showed these to the memorial, explaining her designs with the same passionate precision Sarah had once used, Noah stood back watching this daughter who carried so much of her mother forward into the world. An elderly couple walking nearby paused, the woman smiling at the scene. Is that your daughter? She asked Noah quietly. Yes, he replied with pride. She's showing her mom her latest engineering project. The woman's eyes softened with understanding. Her mother must be very proud wherever she is. I think she is, Noah agreed. On Monday morning, Noah called Vance to accept the Japan assignment. The decision felt right, a continuation of the work he and Sarah had each been doing in their own ways, now expanding beyond anything they could have imagined. The Safety Systems Integrity Division had grown significantly under Noah's leadership. What had begun as a small team was now a department of over 50 engineers, many of them veterans like Noah, who understood both technical systems and the human cost of failure. Frank had become an invaluable advisor, bringing his decades of practical experience to bear on theoretical problems. If you want to know how something will fail, he often said, ask someone who's seen it fail before. One particular hire had raised eyebrows throughout Aurora. Gavin Mercer, the former CTO who had been demoted after the demonstration disaster. Noah had brought him into the division 6 months after the incident, seeing past the man's arrogance to his genuine technical brilliance. The move had been controversial, but Noah had stood firm. Everyone deserves a second chance to get it right, he had told Vance at the time. Besides, no one understands the consequences of cutting corners better than someone who's seen the results up close. Gavin had proven the wisdom of that decision, becoming one of the division's most meticulous reviewers, almost obsessive in his attention to safety protocols. His transformation had been as surprising as Selena's, but perhaps more genuine, born from direct experience rather than public humiliation. In the weeks before his trip to Japan, Noah worked with his team to prepare comprehensive safety guidelines for the expanded implementation. The protocols would be integrated into emergency response systems across multiple countries, creating a unified network that could save countless lives during natural disasters. The scope was enormous, the responsibility sobering. The night before his departure, Noah sat in his garage looking through Sarah's old notebooks again. Flipping through pages of her neat, precise handwriting, he found a passage he hadn't noticed before. The most resilient systems aren't those that never fail, but those that fail gracefully and recover quickly. This requires both technical excellence and human wisdom, the judgment to know when to persist and when to stop. The passage could have been written about their lives together, about the catastrophic failure of her death, and the painful gradual recovery that followed. About Noah's intervention at Aurora and the company's transformation afterward. About Ella's growth from grief-stricken child to confident young engineer. The next morning dawned clear and crisp autumn, painting the Michigan landscape in brilliant reds and golds. Noah and Ella prepared for their respective days, she to school with a science project, he to the airport for his flight to Japan. As they stood in the driveway beside the Mustang, Ella suddenly threw her arms around his waist in a fierce hug. "I'm really proud that you're my dad," she said, her voice muffled against his jacket. Noah held her close, this child who carried the best of Sarah in her determination and brilliance. "And I'm proud that you're my daughter," he replied, "the very best thing I've ever helped build." Frank arrived to drive Ella to school, clapping Noah on the shoulder. "Safe travels, Navy. We've got things covered here." At the airport, Noah paused before entering the security line. The weight of responsibility settled around him, not just for the systems he would help implement, but for all the lives connected to his work. The thousands who might be saved by early warnings during typhoons or earthquakes. The teams who would rely on these protocols working flawlessly under the most extreme conditions. He thought of Sarah, of how she had approached similar responsibilities with both technical precision and deep humanity, of how she had always insisted that safety wasn't just a feature but a fundamental obligation to the people whose lives depended on your work. In Tokyo, Noah was greeted by Mr. Tanaka himself, now in his 70s, but still commanding respect with his precise movements and penetrating gaze. "Mr. Reed," he said, bowing slightly, "it is good to see you again." "The honor is mine," Noah replied, returning the gesture. "Thank you for trusting our systems with such critical infrastructure." Tanaka smiled, the lines around his eyes crinkling. "It is not the systems I trust, Mr. Reed. It is the integrity behind them." He gestured toward the waiting car. "Come, there is much to discuss." Over the next 3 weeks, Noah worked closely with the Japanese implementation team, explaining not just the technical aspects of Sarah's protocols, but the philosophy behind them. The engineers were receptive, their culture already aligned with the principle that safety was a fundamental obligation, not an optional feature. The implementation expanded beyond Japan to emergency response networks in the Philippines, Vietnam, and Taiwan regions, frequently devastated by typhoons, earthquakes, and tsunamis. The potential impact was enormous, potentially saving thousands of lives annually through early warning systems and optimized evacuation routes. In the evenings, Noah video called Ella and Frank, getting updates on school projects, robotics competitions, and the Mustang's interior restoration. Ella proudly showed him the completed dashboard upholstery, the leather precisely cut and stitched, just as he had taught her. Frank helped with the sewing machine, she explained, but I did all the measuring and cutting myself. "It's beautiful," Noah told her, feeling both pride and a twinge of something like loss. His little girl was growing up, becoming more independent with each passing day. It was what he wanted, of course, for her to develop her own skills, her own confidence. But part of him missed the child who had needed him for everything. "Dad," Ella said during one call, her tone suddenly serious, "I've been thinking about Mom's work, about how her fail-safes are saving lives now even though she's gone." Noah nodded, wondering where this was heading. "I want to design systems like that too," Ella continued, "not just for school projects, but for real, systems that keep people safe when everything else fails." Noah felt a swell of emotion, pride, grief, love, all mixed together. "That's a worthy goal, sweetheart. Your mom would be so proud." "I know," Ella said with quiet certainty. "That's why I'm going to do it." On his final day in Japan, Noah met with Mr. Tanaka for a closing discussion. The implementation had gone smoothly, the systems performing exactly as designed during extensive testing. But Tanaka had one more question. "Mr. Reed," he said as they stood overlooking Tokyo from his office, "when you fixed the system that day, did you know what would happen?" Noah considered the question carefully. "If you mean technically, yes. I knew the fail-safes would work as Sarah designed them. But if you mean everything else, the changes at Aurora, the industry impact this implementation? No, I couldn't have predicted any of that. Tanaka nodded slowly. Sometimes the most important decisions are made without knowing their full consequences. We simply do what we believe is right and trust the results to follow. It was similar to what Frank had said about choices that weren't really choices at all, about knowing who you are and acting accordingly. There is an old Japanese concept, Tanaka continued. Michi, it means path or way. Not just a physical path, but the way one lives one's life with purpose, with integrity. You found your Michi that day, Mr. Reed, and in doing so you helped many others find theirs. On the flight home, Noah reflected on how a single moment of decision had rippled outward, affecting not just his own life, but countless others. The engineers at Aurora who now worked under different principles. The companies across the tech industry adopting the Reed principle in their own safety standards. The lives saved by implementations of Sarah's protocols. One line of code, one moment of clarity, one decision to stand up when it mattered most. He pulled out his wallet and removed the small photograph he always carried, Sarah holding newborn Ella, her face radiant with love and purpose. Next to it, he placed Ethan's crayon-drawn card. Past and present, loss and legacy connected by the same fundamental values. When the plane landed in Michigan, Noah saw Ella and Frank waiting at the gate, Ella bouncing on her toes with excitement. As soon as she spotted him, she ran forward, launching herself into his arms, just as she had done countless times before. "Dad, you're back. We have so much to show you. The Mustang's interior is all done, and I got accepted to the Young Engineers Summer Program at MIT, and Frank taught me how to rebuild a carburetor." And Noah laughed, holding her close. "One thing at a time, kiddo. We've got all the time in the world." As they walked to the parking lot, Ella's hand in his, Frank carrying his bag, Noah felt a sense of completion. Not an ending, but a circle, closing a cycle, completed a system restored to balance. Outside, the restored Mustang waited for them, its deep blue paint gleaming in the sunlight. Sarah's car rebuilt by their hands, ready for its second life. Noah ran his hand along the fender, feeling the solid reality of metal shaped by human hands, guided by human values. "Let's take the long way home," he suggested as they climbed in. "I want to hear about everything." As the engine purred to life, smooth and powerful, the result of careful restoration, Noah thought about what came next. The continued expansion of Sarah's safety protocols, Ella's growth into her own path, his own ongoing work at Aurora. A month after his return, Aurora Tech announced a groundbreaking partnership with the National Institute for Ethical Technology Implementation, Selena Cross's new organization, to develop industry-wide standards for AI safety. The press release cited the Reed principle as the foundation of these standards, with a brief mention of its origin in the now famous demonstration incident. Noah had been asked to lead Aurora's side of the collaboration. The request had come from Vance, but the idea had originated with Selena herself. "No one else has the moral authority to make these standards stick," she had written. "The industry trusts you because you've proven you'll put safety before expedience, even at personal cost." After considering the request, Noah had agreed, not out of vanity or ambition, but because it was another opportunity to ensure Sarah's vision lived on. Another way to build something good. The day the partnership was announced, Noah received an email from Dr. Chen. "Thought you'd want to know," she wrote. "Ethan got his heart transplant last week. The operation was successful. His parents say to tell you that your wife's work gave their son the time he needed until a donor was found. Sometimes fail-safes don't just prevent disaster, they create the space for hope." That evening, Noah shared the news with Ella and Frank as they worked together in the garage. The Mustang stood fully restored now, a testament to patience, skill, and dedication. What had begun as a way to hold on to Sarah had transformed into a bridge to the future, a project that connected them to each other and to the values that guided their lives. "This calls for a celebration," Frank declared. "How about we take that Mustang for a proper drive this weekend up to the lake house?" The lake house had been Sarah's favorite place, a small cabin her parents had left her that the family had visited whenever they could. Noah hadn't been back since her death, the memories too painful. But now, with the Mustang restored and Ella growing into her own person, perhaps it was time to reclaim that connection too. "I think that's a great idea," Noah said, catching Ella's hopeful expression. "What do you think, kiddo?" "Can I drive part of the way?" she asked immediately. Noah laughed. Not until you're 16 and have a proper license. But you can navigate. As they finalized plans for their weekend trip, Noah felt a sense of rightness settle over him. The path forward wasn't always clear, but the principles that guided him were: build things that last, value integrity over expedience. Remember that the strongest things are sometimes those that have been broken and mended. The following weekend, as they drove the winding road to the lake house, Ella read aloud from Sarah's old engineering journals, her voice animated as she discovered connections between her mother's thinking and her own budding designs. Frank told stories about the old days at the auto plant, lessons learned over decades of hands-on work. Noah drove listening to these two people who had become his family, feeling Sarah's presence in the car they had restored together in the values they shared in the future they were building. The lake sparkled in the autumn sunlight as they arrived, the cabin standing just as Sarah had left it. Inside, photographs chronicled their life together: Sarah and Noah's wedding day, Ella as a newborn family, picnics and beach days. Moments frozen in time, yet somehow still alive in the values that connected past to present. That night, sitting on the dock, under a sky brilliant with stars, Noah told Ella stories about her mother that he hadn't been able to share before: how Sarah had fought for safety protocols at the manufacturing plant, even when management resisted; how she had insisted that technical excellence without ethical clarity was dangerous; how she had believed that the true measure of engineering wasn't what you built, but who you protected. That's why your fail-safe designs matter so much, Noah explained. They're not just clever solutions. They're expressions of care for the people who will depend on your work. Ella absorbed this, her young face thoughtful in the moonlight. Is that what the Reed principle means? That safety isn't just a feature but an obligation? That's part of it, Noah agreed. But it's also about having the courage to say this isn't right, even when everyone else is saying this is good enough. About knowing when to break a harmful cycle, whether in code or in life. The next morning, Ella discovered an old sketchbook in Sarah's desk, preliminary designs for the safety protocols that now bore her name. She brought it to Noah, eyes wide with recognition. Dad, look. These are like my designs for the robotics competition, but from years ago. Noah examined the sketches, seeing the clear connections between Sarah's thinking and Ella's intuitive approaches. Engineering talent runs in your blood, kiddo. Not just from Mom, Ellen insisted. You taught me how systems work, how to test for failures, how to build things that last. We're both part of her legacy, aren't we? The insight, so perceptive from an 11-year-old, caught Noah by surprise. Yes, he said softly. I suppose we are. As they packed to return home on Sunday evening, Noah took one last walk down to the lakeshore. The setting sun painted the water in shades of gold and crimson, the same colors that had filled the sky on his first date with Sarah here nearly 15 years ago. We built something good, he said quietly to the absent Sarah. Not perfect, but resilient. Something that can adapt and recover when things go wrong. He smiled slightly, thinking of her passage about resilient systems. Just like you said. The gentle waves lapping at the shore seemed like an answer, a reminder that even the most solid things, waterstone grief, change shape over time, finding new forms without losing their essence. Back at the cabin, Noah found Ella and Frank loading the last of their belongings into the Mustang. This unlikely family formed from loss and connection, strengthened by shared values and common purpose. Another kind of resilient system, adapting to change while maintaining its core integrity. As they drove home under a canopy of stars, Ella fell asleep in the back seat. Frank dozed beside her, and Noah navigated the familiar roads with the quiet confidence of someone who knew exactly where he was going. One person, one principle, one line of code. Sometimes that was all it took to change the course of things, to build something resilient, to build something good, not just for today, but for all the tomorrows to come.